Hey, what's up everybody? Brian Dean here. In this resource, I'm going to cover a few quick advanced outreach tactics for promoting your source magnet. Now, I cover a lot of outreach stuff in the videos and worksheets from this module. That's the foundation. But if you're ready to step up your outreach game with some advanced stuff, this bonus resource is definitely for you. Let's dive right in. First up, you want to send your outreach emails when the person is awake and preferably at their inbox. Because in my experience, your send time makes a really big difference in how people respond to your outreach messages. Now, you see, when I first started with outreach, I just hit send whenever I felt like it. So whether I was in Thailand or New York, I'd send each email as soon as I finished writing it. And I quickly learned that this was a huge mistake. I'll explain. Imagine that you're a busy journalist. As a busy journalist, you likely get lots of messages every day. You've got story pitches, press releases, emails from editors, emails from readers, emails from other journalists, and more. Basically, you get a lot of emails. In fact, your inbox first thing in the morning probably looks something like this. Like most people, you might not ever clear out your entire inbox, but by the end of the day, you've worked through a lot of your messages. So by lunchtime, your inbox probably looks more like this, much less crowded. The thing is, most people work through their emails starting from the top, newest first. So the old ones keep getting pushed down, which is why I recommend sending your emails between 10 a.m. and 2 p.m. their local time on weekdays. That way, your message appears at the top of their inbox. Now, to be clear, this isn't a hard and fast rule or anything. If you send your message out at 2:01, it's not going to make a difference. But this is a good rule of thumb to follow to make sure that your messages get opened and read. The next tactic I want to cover is hyper-personalization. Like I mentioned a couple times in this module, you want to personalize every email that you send. That said, as you start to send outreach emails to promote your source magnet, you'll probably notice that they tend to follow the same pattern, which is fine. As long as you're changing things up a little bit each time you send, you're good to go. There's nothing wrong with using the same basic outline if it's working for you. But now and again, you might want to just completely toss out the script or outline that you use and write something from scratch. In other words, hyper-personalization. Hyper-personalization is where you ditch the script and write your outreach email completely from scratch. Why is this important? Well, journalists get literally dozens of pitches every single day. So even if you don't use a script, but if your message just feels like you used a script, they're much less likely to reply. And a hyper-personalized message gets around this problem because you wrote it just for them, which as someone that gets a lot of pitches is easy to see. Here's an example. See how insanely personalized this is? It cites the fact that I'm friends with Noah Kagan, and this person clearly did their research before they hit send. So I wouldn't necessarily use hyper-personalization for every single email that you send. But if there's a person that you absolutely need to get in touch with, going the extra mile with a hyper-personalized message can increase your odds of success. When I reach out to journalists, I like to look at what they've written before. Then I'll pitch a specific story angle based on things that they already covered. For example, if a journalist writes a lot of tech stories, I'll play up the tech angle. If they cover small business, I'll use that. And if they had a specific story that blew up on social media, I can bet that they'll want to recreate that success, so I'll try to relate my pitch to that. Next up, we have using humor. Now, humor can help your outreach success in two ways. First, it disarms the person that's reading your email. When someone opens an email from somebody they don't know, they're really on guard. But when you add a little bit of humor to your message, it takes down their guard a little bit, which makes them more likely to be receptive to your message. Second, humor helps your outreach stand out. Most outreach emails are super serious, dry, boring, and just overall lame. Adding a touch of humor helps your outreach stand out from the pack. Here's an example of me using a little bit of humor in an outreach email. Now, obviously, there's a time and place for humor, so you do want to use some discretion here. But the bottom line is, when you can use humor, you should use humor. The next tactic is not to use tools too early. In fact, here's a question that I get a lot. Hey, Brian, I'm just starting with outreach. Which tool should I use if I'm just starting out? And my answer is always the same. You shouldn't use any tool if you're just starting out with outreach. Now, personally, I've tried almost every outreach tool under the sun, and I can tell you from experience that none of these tools will make your outreach better or more successful. In other words, outreach tools can help you scale outreach, but they won't make your outreach any better. And when you're just starting out, the last thing you want to do is scale up. Instead, this is a perfect opportunity to learn the nuances of outreach to journalists. That way, you can figure out what works and what doesn't work in your niche. Then, when you're ready, consider using a tool to scale what's already working for you. For example, I recently got this horrendous outreach email. Not only was this a bad outreach email, but I didn't even write the post they were talking about. So I replied with this, and here's what they said. In other words, they had someone that didn't know what they were doing send outreach emails with a tool. Now, I do think this was an honest mistake, but still, it kind of burned a bridge with me. I'm much less likely to share any of their stuff in the future, and it could have been avoided if that person sent me an actual personalized message without any tool. Speaking of personalization, next up we have personalizing your subject lines. So let's look at our busy journalist morning inbox one more time. Let's assume that you send your email into this barrage. How can you get your message to stand out besides sending at the right time? It's simple actually. You want to personalize your subject line. In fact, our analysis of 12 million outreach emails found that personalized subject lines got 30% more responses. That's because personalized subject lines help your messages stand out in people's crowded inboxes. Just look at the difference between how this subject line looks in an inbox compared to this personalized version, which is why I recommend adding the person's name, business, or something personal in your subject line whenever it makes sense. Last up, we have a rule of thumb, which is to follow up once. There's only one thing more annoying than a bad pitch with 1 million follow-up emails. If a journalist doesn't respond to your first message, that should tell you something. They're probably not interested, or maybe they just got too busy. Either way, being a pest isn't going to help you. The good news, there's always a next time if you don't get on their bad side. On the other hand, sending a single follow-up can boost replies by 65.8%. So what's the right way to go here? Here's what I recommend. Follow up exactly once. That way you won't be a pest. You can even say something like, don't worry, I'm only following up this one time. Second, only follow up with the most relevant journalists and bloggers. And when you do follow up, include something new and interesting. Not just, hi Sarah, I'm following up on this. Also, try to use a different angle or different story ideas. Change your pitch in the follow-up. After all, your first email didn't convince them, so take that as a hint and use a different approach in your follow-up. And if you're not sure where to start, you can try this journalist pitch template that I have in the digital marketing templates library. And with that, that's the end of this video, and I'll see you in the next one.